A lot of changes happen during the second half of life. Join Kash Mahmood, owner of Vargo Hospice and Home Health, and his guest as they explore topics to help you navigate the second half of your life. And now, here's Kash.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Second Half of Life with me, Kash Mahmood. Our very special guest today is Jack Angel with Senior Care Authority. Today, we will be talking about how to find the right place for an aged parent or spouse. Jack, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Kash. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity and consideration, and look forward to speaking with you about this very important topic.
Well, I was thinking we dive right in. Before we go into the key topics of the discussion, Jack, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and how you got into this industry for our viewers?
Absolutely, my pleasure, Kash. Thank you so much for asking. I'm a senior care advisor, and there's a certification with that similar to what you would get for accreditation, like a financial planner. So a certified senior advisor, and in addition, I'm also a certified dementia practitioner, which allows me to at least appreciate some of the sensitivities of dealing with the aged loved ones or family members that might be addressing some concerns with cognitive decline. In addition, I'm a community educator on behalf of the Alzheimer's Association, so I like to give awareness presentations to the community. And I am also a certified Beyond Driving with Dignity professional. We'll talk a little bit about some of that as additional services that we have out there to help the families make sure that they stay safe and understand what their options are as it comes to transportation. And then finally, I'm an instructor for Guitars for Vets, and I've been doing that for quite some time, and very much enjoy working with the veteran community. And probably more importantly, I'm a grandfather and have some wonderful family members that I enjoy around the area. But to answer your question about how I got into this, it was really a personal situation. When my mom had her stroke, unfortunately, uh, then couldn't go home. Dad couldn't really look after her, so we had to find a place where she was going to be, trying to get some rehabilitation, but still engaging and have some social activities relatively close by that we could afford, and all of these things that come into play when we're looking at trying to find the right community. And unfortunately, I did it all on my own, and really was a little frustrated, and the some of the information that was provided to me versus what was really going on behind the scenes. Of course, it's all down to the frontline caregivers, and then of course the support they have from their management to be able to do the right thing. So I ended up having to move her a couple of times, and as you know, one move's tough enough, but then we found just a wonderful community for her, where she was able to live out her life in a great environment, great friends, great care, and I that's when it turned to me that maybe there's a better way to do this, and started and embarked in 2019 to go ahead and get Senior Care Authority up and running in Southeast Texas.
Mm. Wow, that's amazing. You've got a tremendous amount
That's
of
a lot.
expertise.
Thank you so much. A long-winded response to a short question, but
No, that's
no,
that's
and very much enjoy working with the families, enjoy working with the communities, with people like yourself who offer just such tremendous services to complement, I think, the concerns that we have with regards to looking after our loved ones. This is, this is not like, buying a car or something. Our medical decisions are probably some of the most important uh, decisions we will ever make in our life, who we choose as our care providers, and this one is no different.
right. Well, Jack, there are literally thousands of options for senior placements in Houston. In your experience, do families find it overwhelming?
It's a great question, Kasha. They do. When you start, we start on this journey. Usually something's happened or about to happen, and there's usually some warning signs that maybe it's time to start looking and planning for it, or some event has happened. Usually a medical event has happened where there's a need, a relatively urgent need, to go ahead and find a place, and then you start doing the internet search. You start kind of reaching out, and of course. We're very fortunate in the Houston, greater Houston area to just have a wealth of options out there. Everything from, staying at home, which everyone wants to do. And I think there are tremendous options there if it can be done with the right level of care and safely. And of course, within the budget, then certainly that's where you should stay for as long as you can. But if things change to the point where the needs are specific outside of that, um, then we have residential or private care homes. They look like regular houses you would see in your neighborhood, not really aware that they are, many of them, if they have 4 beds or more, they have to be licensed by the state, that are available out there to provide a very residential environment. The From that independent living and independent living communities, you have now what are called continuing care retirement communities in our Houston area, and those continue to grow. Assisted living and different levels of that, memory care, all the way through long-term acute care and skilled nursing facilities. So already I've kind of just voiced off a whole bunch of terms. And I think to answer your question, that it can be a little overwhelming when we're trying to understand, what our options are in all of the different amenities, costs, features, activities associated with each of those. But it's a good problem to have because it does give us a lot of options and good competitiveness within that space.
Hmm. In hospice, there are a lot of myths and a lot of misconceptions about hospice in particular. Um, what do you think is the biggest misconception about senior living that you find families leaving in, or you tend to try to educate them overcome?
Yeah, I think there's really two that kind of jump out most often. One, either it's too expensive, and it definitely costs, and we can talk a little bit about the averages themselves, but that it's out of reach, and in many cases it really isn't, and that the communities are almost a perception of maybe something we have from the Hollywood movies of a very ward environment or something like a 1950s kind of ward hospital looking, and that's so far from the truth. The reality is that so many of these communities work really hard to provide an engaging and stimulating environment as a residence. These are people's homes. It's in many cases going to be their last home, and they work very very hard to create that really welcoming home. And many of the caregivers that you speak with in this business, they would say that they're just visiting the residents home, and are privileged to be able to help them with their activities of daily living. But I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, is the fact that there are more of these kind of ward type environments, when the reality is, from residential care homes all the way up through cruise ship type living, if that's something of interest, that we have out there. But that's probably the biggest misconception that I have to deal with.
Hmm. Do you think it's important that families find a place close to where they live?
I mean, there's certainly a convenience factor, and the ability, to have that area where it's convenient to the things they know, whether it's the Walmart that they're going to, or the church that they're used to going to see, and things of that nature. I think there are probably more important factors out there besides location, but it definitely is a big piece to it. you don't want to limit yourself based on the level of care that you really need, because that really should be the priority. Care and safety really should take priority. But location, without a doubt, especially as I'd mentioned, you really want to have that engaging factor with families. If you're trying to visit a loved one who's in a retirement community, you want to make sure that it's close enough to where you can get it. And then for the residents, if they're used to going to a specific church or Walmart or doctor's offices, things of that nature. But that's it's a great question, because location is one of the many factors that really comes in when you're trying to look at your options.
Hmm. Interesting. That's, I mean, because location tends to be that very first thing that folks start
Yeah,
to look at, and they're not even considering the logistics side. They're considering that if they're closer, they may be able to provide better care. So
right.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah.
When you're helping families with placements, what is the most important thing that you think should be looked at or evaluated?
And it's, I think, Kash, to follow on from the last question, that's a great one, because it helps then prioritize when you're looking at the options and comparing some of the places. It really should start with care, and once we start with the care level required by the resident themselves, certainly there's family convenience and convenience to medical professionals, all that kind of stuff as well. But if we start really honing in on what the resident themselves need with regards to care and safety, then the other pieces that come into the puzzle, I think, fall in very well. So after that, then we start looking at activities, location, as we talked about, budget. Not that any of these are less important, but if we prioritize with the care level required first and then move in to make sure that we've got everything else covered, do we have to have is there a pet involved? Are there specific languages that are spoken? All of those things that are really nice to have, that we can actually provide the greatest living experience. But at the same time, it all should be second to that initial point of focusing on the care.
Hmm. Do you charge families for your help?
So the short answer is no, and it's why I press very hard to uh, families or individuals who may be looking at long-term care options to reach out to people like me. I'm not exclusive in this area. There's a real need to provide services to families themselves, but look for a certified senior advisor or certified placement specialist, because just as you mentioned with regards to the cost, there's usually no cost, and this is where it, kind of gets a little sticky for independent care, home care, providing referral sources like hospice, memory care, assisted living, all of those, there's never a charge to the family. And the way the business works is that we as professionals really don't provide a specific recommendation. We listen through a discovery session with the family to understand the unique requirements of that individual or couple, and then from there provide several good options based on the information that's provided. You want to leave that decision up to the individual or to the family based on those options. Now we'll go tour the communities with them, make sure all the questions are answered, all of that kind of stuff as well. And if they choose one of those options, the business is structured such that people like me, senior placement advisors, usually get some portion of the first month's rent. And that's how we stay in business. That's how we cover our costs. The exception to this are the skilled nursing facilities here in the state of Texas. They are run by the state, and that by law, they're not able to provide a placement fee or services fee. And for that reason, there would be a nominal charge to the family based on the number of hours to find the best skilled nursing facility. But to answer your question, no, there's no charge. And really, anyone looking at this, consultations are always free. We're going to at least make sure that you get into the right direction, and then if you want to engage the services, then all of that would be upfront.
Mhm. And knowing you, Jack, I can pretty much bet that you will work with the families to make sure that they get whatever they need, and really finances is a secondary element. But
It really is, cushion, and especially when as we move down that list, if you will, and certainly care, we talked about safety, activities, location, and then budget. It's a reality of the situation, and it was again part of the misconception, and then trying to understand what's available. Everything from long-term care insurance, Medicaid versus Medicare, who pays for what? Do I have any other benefits available? Are there VA benefits that might be accessible for me as well? And then just understanding the different price points, and certainly we can have a very modest living environment for very modest fees associated with it. And in our Houston area, you can get the concierge cruise ship living type of environment. Of course, that will cost a little bit more.
right. What other tools do you have in your tool bag to help families?
It's, I think, a big part of trying to be all encompassing. So when we look at the family's needs, every family member or couple are very unique in their situation. They've had different living experiences, they have different care level needs, they have different locations, budgets, all of this, and different family members involved. And I think making sure that we're seen as a resource. So to be able to access additional professional services when they're needed, is an estate plan required? We talked about the Veterans Administration. When do we need to either make a claim, um, appeal a claim, or make an application similar to with Medicaid? And I have access to an ongoing and growing network. Hospice care providers like Varco to be able to provide those services. And you want to be able to have a family give them options because we are independent service providers. So there's no real, referral bonuses or anything like that that goes on between us. We want those companies that have a good history, that are very clear to have no violations, no complaints, registered with the states, have the right insurance, background checks, all of those pieces as well. But that network of professionals that I can provide, whether it be in-home meals, transportation services, putting up a few rails in the home to make it a little bit safer, or looking at, how can we actually get someone to and from a doctor's appointment. So all of those additional services, and I've rattled off quite a few, but they're, I think, all under the umbrella of care. What's going to be able to provide that senior or that couple or that family member that at the best living environment where all of these questions are taken care of? The idea, from my perspective, is to let the family member and the caregiver really focus on the individual, and all of these questions, they don't have to spend hours and hours trying to figure out who's doing what and what's available, and that just put that on the shoulders of a placement advisor, and they're going to be able to provide some good options.
Right. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think having somebody like you who's not just a trusted advisor, but takes the time to understand the family and their needs, because there are a lot of options out there for service providers. But this goes back to that same thing. It's what fits the family best. It's at the end of the day, honestly, a matchmaking exercise, right? So, and the fact that you've done that legwork up front, I think is tremendously valuable to the families. Um,
I appreciate it, Kasia. I mean, at the end of the day, similar to hospice and home health care services, we're here to help any way we can. We are in this because we care. We've got, personal tie to this as well. I think more than anything else, want to try and impress on families or individuals, they don't have to do this on their own.
right,
Help is available, and creating awareness that these resources are really out there is, at the end of the day, what gives us some of the best and most satisfaction here, and the fact that we're doing a good job and making sure that people have as much information, created that awareness of what their options are to be able to help.
right. Well, Jack, how do our viewers get in touch with you?
Thank you, Kash. Thank you very much. Of course, the website is seniorcare-southeasttexas.com and available through there. My phone number, area code 936-225-4373, 936-225-4373. So you can just look for Senior Care Authority. That's a fairly easy catch name. You can search that as well. I'm available 24/7. I enjoy this, and many times we run into situations where it might be the weekend or a discharge from a hospital. We're not sure what our options are. You can call my office, and we're going to be able to help and respond immediately for any of those any of those needs that might be there.
Great. Well, Jack, I've really enjoyed having you on the show as always, and I love how you can pack so much information in such little time.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
I feel like we need to do more and more, and just go deeper and deeper into these layers. But thank you so much for being on the show, and it really enjoyed it as always.
Gosh, thank you again. You're providing just a great, wonderful service here and helping people understand what their options are. And I very much appreciate the consideration and look forward to future shows.